Part 102 of Rebbe Nachman's Likutei Moharan. Once I came to Rebbe Nachman of blessed memory, and he told me of a recent visit he had had from a certain rabbi. The rabbi had spoken with him and taught him a Torah lesson, but I was not worthy of having him repeat this teaching to me. The only thing I heard from his holy mouth was that he told me he spoke on the topic of Boaz and Ruth. Esoterically, Boaz and Ruth are juxtapositions of redemption with prayer. Boaz represents the concept of redemption as is written, "For I'm a redeemer," Ruth 3:12. Ruth represents the concept of prayer. As our sages of blessed memory taught, why was she named Ruth? It was on account of her descendant David, who Rebbe saturated the Blessed Holy One with songs and praises. That's very interesting. David, the symbol for the Messiah, comes from a person who represents redemption and another person who represents the praises associated with prayer. It was clear from the Rebbe's words that he had revealed a very lofty teaching on this topic, but I wasn't privileged to hear it. I also heard the Rebbe said then that he considers all the very lofty insights he attains inconsequential in comparison with any teaching he reveals to the world. This is because all the worlds, the higher and the lower, are dependent upon each and every word he reveals in public. To explain the insights he does not reveal are certainly countless thousands of times loftier than what he does reveal in public, as has been explained elsewhere many times. And yet even so, in his eyes such an insight is not at all significant and consequential, since he makes the Jewish people only barely more meritorious through it. The most important thing for him is when people merit hearing some teaching from him, because through each and every word, as mentioned above. This is in line with a very common theme in Hasidic philosophy, which is the importance of grounding, importance of disseminating the teachings, and the importance of making the public meritorious, having an impact in the world. Hasidus is not about being cloistered in the mountains, but having a real impact. And so here, the Rebbe says that quite profoundly, the worlds, the higher and lower, are dependent upon the words of Torah that he reveals. Now, the commentaries here are sparse, but should there be some, I'm sure it would be quite interesting. Part 103. When a person prays, as long as he still hears someone else then, that is, he hears and senses that another person is standing there during his prayer, it is not good. This is because while praying, every person must picture in his mind that there is no one else. It is just me and God. The lesson Abba Shaul once, while chasing after a deer, explains an even greater nullification during prayer. During prayer, a person is obligated to nullify himself to such a degree that he does not even notice himself then, just God alone. For then, at the time of prayer, a person is standing in the king's chamber, etc. See what is written there. Who is he? Why? His corporality has been nullified, so that there is nothing here but the king himself. See there. 104. Rebbe Nachman greatly loved the simple devotions of ordinary people, the uncomplicated religious folk. He particularly loved anyone who could recite the many supplications and treaties found in the thick prayer books, as in the way of the religious masses. The Rebbe would also repeatedly urge and exhort us to sing the Sabbath songs. He would be stern and annoyed with anyone who considers himself wise, and so would not make the effort to sing the Sabbath and Motzei Shabbos songs. Didn't know there were Motzei Shabbos songs. Perform other simple devotions. For the essence of Jewishness is conducting oneself with complete straightforwardness and simplicity, without any sophistication, as has been explained in our teachings many times. In fact, before contracting the severe illness from which he passed away, the Rebbe himself of blessed memory always sang a great many songs each Sabbath and Motzei Shabbos. Interesting. The idea of song seems to be associated with simplicity and straightforwardness. 105. I heard from one of Rebbe Nachman's followers that the Rebbe exhorted him to study his Torah lessons deeply, endeavor to produce some original ideas, just as he exhorted many of his followers. And the Rebbe said to him, if you merit ascertaining the substance of what I intended with my lesson, good. But even if you cannot ascertain my intention, it is still very good when you merit originating something in Torah, because it is a great remedy for immoral thoughts. So here he is bringing down the idea that our interpretation and our exposition of Torah insights. I was complaining earlier that there was no commentary to his writings here, but even if we originate our own, it seems to be a remedy for immoral thoughts. This is because all immoral thoughts are the product of madame, imagination. Thus, by originating something in Torah, which is the concept of madame, likening one thing to another, one rectifies the blemish caused by immoral thoughts, which stem from the imagination. I myself heard this from the Rebbe's holy mouth many, many times. He greatly stressed originating insights in Torah, saying that it was a very, very great rectification for the past. He said, too, that articulating even just a single original idea is also very good because it is a very great remedy. He also said that it is a favor for the souls of one's forebears who have already passed on. Oh, that's very sweet. I wonder why it would be a favor, even though there's no official Breslov commentary on what that means. But originating new Torah insights appears to be meritorious for those who passed away. 106. It is proper to meditate on words of Torah during relations. One can conceive a child, even with one's mind bound to thoughts of Torah. It is very good for a person to train himself in this. You can conceive a child, even with one's mind bound to thoughts of Torah. That's interesting. 107. Once Rebbe Nachman spoke about detesting and distancing himself from the universal desire, the sexual desire. He stated emphatically, see, eating at least provides a person with additional energy and vitality. This desire, however, does just the opposite. It greatly diminishes and damages vitality and seriously weakens a person's strength. Other than for procreation, we certainly have no need for it whatsoever. Well, I don't know if he's familiar with the ideas of cultivating sexual energy, but certainly if it's just wantonly released, then it has no desire or no purpose. But even so, it's for procreation. 108. Once, while talking about human behavior, Rebbe Nachman declared, for the sake of a single insignificant pleasure of a quarter hour, a person can forfeit and lose all of this world and the world to come. He said this in Yiddish, a mensch von ein Tanugel wegen von a Vartel Sham, kun un veren gor dem Oilim Chaza mit dem Oilam Haba. I wonder what that insignificant pleasure would be. It's too bad there's no extensive commentary. I can only guess it has something to do with the sexual desire. In Torah 109, the Rebbe spoke with me about the gray side of the Baal Shem Tov, made the mention of the tzaddik and holy man bring blessing, that it was very good to be there at his grave. The Rebbe said that this is because the righteous shall inherit the land. In other words, the true tzaddikim inherit the land of Israel. They merit that their place of interment possesses the sanctity of the land of Israel, literally. And the land of Israel is a rectification for the blemish of the bris, which is the covenant of circumcision, a symbol for sexual immorality. 110. I heard that someone asked Rebbe Nachman about the nature of free will. The Rebbe responded matter-of-factly that free will is in a person's hands. Simply, if he wants, he does. If he doesn't want, he doesn't do. I recorded this because it is crucial. Many people are very perplexed by this, having become creatures of habit, following the same old patterns of behavior since childhood. People think that they no longer have any free will, God forbid, and that they are incapable of changing the way they act. In fact, this is not the case, for without a doubt, every individual has free will, always, and in all matters. A person does what he wants. Understand this well. Well, it's very interesting so far. Torah 111. Someone asked Rebbe Nachman about the practices which bring a person closer to God. The Rebbe instructed him to study Torah. How, he asked him. I'm unable to study. Everything can be attained through prayer, the Rebbe answered. Everything good, Torah, worship, and all the holiness, devotions, and good in all the worlds. The Rebbe once said, if a dead person were allowed to return to this world to pray, he would certainly pray very beautifully with all his might. 112. On the topic of his chaskot, that a person should not fall into despair on account of the many blemishes and harm his action caused. The Rebbe declared, if you believe it is possible to destroy, believe it is possible to repair. It's very optimistic and characteristic of Hasidic masters. When someone who has experienced even just a glimmer of God does does only a single thing that is less than perfectly proper. God forbid, that is to say, although there is not a suggestion of sin in his action, God forbid, nor is it marked by any full-fledged material desire, just that he does not genuinely do it with absolutely perfect sanctity, his soul ought to expire totally on account of the remorse and embarrassment. A glimmer of God inspires a person to be in such a lofty state, it holds him to such a lofty state, that even if he does a single thing that is less than perfectly proper, his soul should be filled with remorse and embarrassment. That's interesting. This is how much he values his connection to God. Hopefully we're all like this. Torah 1:14. I was once speaking with the Rebbe of blessed memory and perceived that he very much wanted to reveal to some perception he had attained as he was wont to do. However, it was hard for him. I walked with the Rebbe in silence because he said nothing at all to me. Even so, as we walked, the following words emerged from his holy mouth. It appears that we must guard ourselves very carefully from immoral thoughts. Rabbi Nachman is very focused on the idea of correcting immoral thoughts. From the holy language he used and the holy motions he made when saying this, I could tell that an awesome insight had been revealed to him about the severity of an immoral thought. God forbid. It causes terrible harm. May the compassionate one spare us. However, it is impossible to put this into writing. Oh my gosh. That's such a tease. Torah 1:15. Rabbi Nachman spoke of the great encouragement he had in serving God and how he would not allow himself to get at all confused. The Rebbe's ways was to choose some upright path to follow in serving God and proceed to conduct himself in those practices. And that path he had chosen for himself. He would continue those practices for a period of time. Whenever other thoughts would come up to distract him from the conduct with some other conduct, he would ignore them completely. He would push those thoughts from his mind and not entertain them in any manner. Instead, he was extremely resolute and single-minded. He would carry on for some time with the path he had chosen. However, subsequently, after many weeks had passed, thoughts of his having to follow a different path would return, and so since considerable time had already passed, he would settle his mind and choose some other path and schedule, one that seemed appropriate then. But he would not allow himself to become confused all the time by switching from one devotion to another, or from one path to a different path. Rather, he was firm in carrying on with a single path for a long time, as mentioned above. It seems synchronistic with the use of the word focused that I spoke about earlier. It seems like we are connecting with the Rebbe on a more abstract level, perhaps a meta level, that is beyond normal association. There is definitely some kind of connection. I've seen this before. Torah 1:16. Rabbi Nachman related that when he was in the land of Israel, he spoke with distinguished figures there who had originally been from this locale and settled in the land of Israel, as is known. They told him that before being in the land of Israel, they could not picture for themselves that it was located in this world. Considering the way the holy books depict the great sanctity of the land of Israel, they assumed it was an entirely different world. Its sanctity is described in our holy Torah numerous times, and the Torah itself specifies all its boundaries on account of its loftiness and sanctity, which are extremely immense and awesome. Therefore, they could not picture for themselves with their own eyes that the land of Israel exists in this world until they came there and saw that it is actually in this world. It sounds like a fairy tale land. For in fact, the land of Israel is exactly like these lands. In look and appearance, its soil is exactly like that of those lands. May there be peace upon this land, and morality and rectitude. Although people occasionally bring white soil from there, that is only from particular locations. And even in this land, white soil and natron are found in some places. However, the majority of the soil in the land of Israel is exactly like the soil of these lands. The fact is that in an outward appearance, there is no difference at all between the land of Israel and other lands, lahavdo. Nonetheless, it is extremely holy, supremely sanctified by an immense and awesome holiness. Praiseworthy is he who merits taking even 4 steps there, as our sages of blessed memory, and all the holy works say in extolling its immensely great and awesome holiness. The Rebbe of blessed memory related this because it is crucial in many areas about which people's misapprehensions leave them perplexed. There are those who mistakenly think that one should be able to recognize the tzaddik, or anything holy from his face, image, or appearance, that he should especially be distinctive in his appearance and mannerisms. In reality, it is not so. In appearance and image, the tzaddik resembles all men. There is nothing different about him, and even so, he is something entirely different. In actual fact, other people do not resemble him at all. As the Rebbe of blessed memory taught, a sincerely religious Jew may appear to have the same innards as everyone else, yet he is something altogether different. Likewise, the land of Israel. In all its elements and aspects, it is entirely distinct and separate from the other lands. The Rebbe of blessed memory said the land of Israel has a different sky than the rest of the world. As the Zohar brings on the chapter of Truma, even so, the human eye sees no physical difference whatsoever between the land of Israel and other lands. Only someone who merits believing in its holiness can somewhat tell them apart. The same applies to the tzaddik and those who are more sincerely religious than the rest of the world. In reality, all their mannerisms and their appearance and image are like everyone else's. The human eye cannot tell them apart physically, and yet in actual fact we believe that they are entirely separate and distinct. For a sincerely religious Jew is something altogether different, as mentioned above, and all the more so the genuine tzaddik. This is crucial for many areas. Understand this well. Torah 117. Regarding the confusion a person experiences when he enters a higher level of holiness, as for instance, when he begins to come closer to the true tzaddik and the like, how is it that right then he experiences some form of impurity, God forbid? This has already been explained elsewhere, that when a person enters holiness, the evil inclination increases its attack against him, because with each further advance in holiness, he has a new evil inclination, greater than the earlier one. Actually, this confusion is foolishness. No matter how we view the situation, if what happened to him was the result of an immoral thought, whose fault is it? He should not complain at all, since he brought it upon himself. If it is not the result of an immoral thought, then it is certainly in no way a bad sign. For if it was something bad, our sages of blessed memory would not have taken it as a good sign for someone who is ill, as our sages of blessed memory taught. A seminal discharge is a good sign for a sick person. In fact, it is just the opposite. It is on account of his coming closer to a very exalted holiness that he experienced this, because, as the sages of blessed memory taught, whoever betters himself below is judged more strictly on high, as it is stated, and as is your fear, so is your wrath. It follows then, when a person betters himself and enters holiness, they hold him to a stricter standard, and so accusations and judgments are raised against him, God forbid. And from the devolutions of the judgments, the evil inclination is created, as is brought elsewhere. Therefore he should not complain at all about this. On the contrary, it is because he has entered such a high level of holiness that the evil inclination through the devolution of the judgments provokes him. This is why the sages of blessed memory considered it a great miracle when the high priest did not experience a seminal mission on Yom Kippur, as they taught, by the high priest entering such a lofty holiness on Yom Kippur to the temple's innermost sanctum. Many accusations and judgments were certainly raised against him. This produced the evil inclination, as mentioned above. It was therefore considered miraculous that the high priest was spared from a seminal mission on Yom Kippur. Now look here and understand. How can this matter confuse a person? Can he complain that a miracle was not performed on his behalf as it was for the high priest on Yom Kippur? Know too that there are times when a person possesses a hidden impurity, which, due to its concealment and hiddenness, is precluded from being rectified. Consequently, what he experienced as a result of his coming closer to holiness was in fact beneficial. It caused the hidden impurity to emerge. Once it emerges, it becomes possible to find a rectification for it, which was not the case previously, while it was still hidden. This is the reason Abraham did not father Yitzchak until he had first fathered Ishmael. Likewise, Yitzchak fathered Esav, and only then Yaakov, in order to first remove the feculence, as is brought. It reminds me of a certain rabbi who was abusing people for many, many years. And as I'm supposedly coming closer to holiness, he started attacking me as well. And so now it's all come to light. So may God Almighty help us.